In the summer of 1897, a team of 3 Swedish explorers, led by the engineer Salomon Andrée, embarked on an excursion that would take them over the vast, frozen wilderness of the Arctic. Their mission? To become the first humans to fly over the North Pole in a hydrogen balloon. For centuries, explorers dreamed of conquering and mapping this unknown frontier. But what began as a bold journey of ambition ended in mystery and tragedy. This is the story of Andrée's Arctic balloon expedition. At the end of the 19th century, the Arctic was one of the last great frontiers. Worldwide, many explorers, driven by national pride and the desire for fame, attempted to chart the unknown, often at great personal risk. Andrée had already gained attention with his earlier balloon flights over Sweden and Finland, but his true ambition lay in Arctic exploration, which he believed would bring Sweden into the global spotlight of scientific discovery. Andrée's expedition symbolized the country's hopes of staking its claim in this grand age of exploration. As a passionate balloonist, he had an idea that was bold, even revolutionary. He would use the power of the wind to fly over the Arctic. The hydrogen balloon, named Örnen, the Eagle, in English, was an engineering marvel of its time. It was 67 feet in diameter, constructed from 3 layers of varnished Chinese silk, and capable of carrying over 3,000 kilograms. The balloon was equipped with provisions for 4 months, including dried meat, pemmican, and canned food. Andrée even brought carrier pigeons to send messages home during the journey. It was designed to carry him and 2 companions, Niels Strindberg and Knut Frankel, across the frozen Arctic wasteland to the North Pole. Niels Strindberg, just 24 years old, was a physicist and a skilled photographer. His role was to document the expedition using advanced photography equipment, which included a 7-kilogram camera. Despite his youth, Strindberg was deeply committed to the mission. The second member of the team was 27-year-old Knut Frankel, a civil engineer and an avid outdoorsman. Frankel was a last-minute addition to the crew, replacing Niels Ekholm, an experienced meteorologist who had withdrawn from the expedition over concerns about the balloon's ability to retain hydrogen. Ekholm's doubts about the balloon's reliability would later prove tragically accurate. The expedition was backed by the Swedish king, the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. It was funded by none other than Alfred Nobel, the Swedish scientist that gave his name to the famous Nobel Prize, and also surprisingly invented dynamite. More details on Nobel achievements will be detailed in a future video. Back on July 11th, 1897, after weeks of waiting for favorable winds, Andrée and his crew finally launched their balloon from Svalbard. Crowds gathered, cheering as the balloon slowly rose into the Arctic sky. The world watched with exultation as Örnen, or the Eagle, rose into the sky, its basket filled with provisions for the long journey. The goal was to reach the North Pole, and then drift safely to either Canada or Russia. The crew was optimistic, ready to make history as the first humans to soar over the North Pole. But just hours after takeoff, things started to go wrong. The balloon's design was flawed. The seams that held the silk layers together leaked hydrogen. Despite efforts to patch them, the leakage was more severe than anticipated. The balloon's lifting power was also undermined by the wet, cold Arctic air, which caused the hydrogen to escape even faster than expected. The inflatable aircraft was descending towards the ice below. Andrée had placed his faith in a technique he called drag rope steering, hoping it would allow him to control the balloon's direction by dragging ropes along the surface of the ice. But this system had never been fully tested in the harsh conditions of the Arctic. Soon, it became clear that the expedition was essentially at the mercy of the wind and technical issues. Within 3 days, on July 14th, 1897, the balloon crashed onto the Arctic ice, stranding the crew in one of the most desolate places on Earth, hundreds of miles from civilization. With no chance of getting back into the air, the 3 explorers were forced to abandon their hopes of reaching the North Pole. Andrée, Strindberg, and Frankel had no choice but to trek across the ice on foot, dragging their heavy sleds behind them. They packed what they could from the balloon's remains, loading their sleds with provisions, scientific equipment, and Strindberg's heavy camera. They had limited supplies, no real experience with Arctic survival, and the terrain was far harsher than they had ever imagined. The ice floes beneath them were unstable, constantly shifting and cracking. Their heavy sleds, not designed for the harsh terrain and heavy loads, were almost impossible to drag, and their clothes, while warm, were soaked through by the constant exposure to freezing water. They hunted for food, but the energy required to move their sleds and navigate the treacherous terrain drained their strength. And though they had rifles and ammunition, they faced the constant threat of polar bears, which roamed the ice searching for prey. Each day was a struggle, and with no experience in polar survival, the men quickly found themselves overwhelmed. They were fighting daily exhaustion, bitter cold, and dwindling supplies. Weeks turned into months. The explorers pushed on, hoping to find a way back to civilization. At one point, they found themselves stranded on Kvitoya, also known as White Island, a desolate place covered in snow and ice. Here, their fate was sealed. Niels Strindberg, the youngest member of the team, continued to write letters to his fiancée, Anna, expressing his hopes for survival, but his words would never reach her. Despite their best efforts to hunt polar bears and build makeshift shelters, the relentless Arctic cold claimed their lives one by one. The men succumbed to the cold and exhaustion. Strindberg was the first to die, followed shortly by Frankel and finally Andrée. Alone, isolated and far from home, the Arctic claimed them, as it had claimed so many explorers before. For 33 years, the fate of Andrée and his team remained a mystery. The world speculated about what had happened to them. Then, in 1930, a Norwegian expedition stumbled upon their final resting place on Kvitoya. The remains of Andrée, Strindberg and Frankel were found, along with their journals and Strindberg's photographs, perfectly preserved in the ice, some haunting images that captured their final days on the ice. The story of Salomon Andrée is a reminder of the fine line between ambition and pride. His bold plan to conquer the North Pole by balloon was a testament to human curiosity and the drive to explore the unknown. But it also serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of underestimating nature. One question remains hotly debated: how did they die? Some believe it was trichinosis, a parasitic infection from undercooked polar bear meat. Others speculate hypothermia and simple exhaustion. Or did they simply lose hope in the face of insurmountable odds? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more perilous quests. Got an epic journey in mind that you think deserves the spotlight? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, stay healthy, stay curious, and remember, as the British poet T.S. Eliot said, only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go.